Hello, I'm one of the history teachers at Cathays High School, and I've been taking part in the Heritage, History, Culture and Diversity project. So we have a really interesting context at Cathays High School, which is probably quite different to a lot of other schools in Wales. We have a huge amount of diversity. We've got pupils from different countries, pupils with different religions, races. We've got pupils from different countries that have moved within the last year, pupils that were born in Wales, pupils that were not born in Wales, pupils that don't have any real understanding of Welsh history. We've got pupils that have been, speaking Welsh in primary school for a long time. So you've got lots and lots of different types of pupils and lots of different heritages and pupils with diverse backgrounds. And we want to develop a curriculum that reflects this. As part of the project, we wanted to sort of tackle one of the problems we've sort of come up against, which is the fact that unlike other sort of schools, local history and sort of discussing the local area, in some ways, some of the pupils don't really connect to this history because they've only moved to the country within the last year. And Welsh history as a whole is something they've got really limited knowledge on. So we wanted to develop a module that was based on all of the pupils' heritages and something that they could all connect with in order to help them connect with their Cynefin. And the history of the school and how then that fits into the wider local history was one thing that all of the pupils have in common. They're all a part of our school, they're all part of the community of Cathays. And we wanted to develop a module to help them see the wider sort of Welsh local history and different national issues from the lens of the school, as that was something that they've all got in common with each other. So what we implemented was a scheme of work to begin with, just a series of 5 lessons that took them through the history of the high school, how the area in general has changed, and then how this sort of links to them and the similarities and differences they can see with the pupils that attended the school when it first opened in the 1930s. So it was a scheme of lessons. The majority of the lessons were based on source work. It was very inquiry based with lots of different sources. So the pupils were acting a little bit like historians. They were doing the research. They were sort of discovering the sources as if it was for the first time, and they were sort of working out what they wanted to learn from the images and from the diary entries and things that they were reading. You can see here just a couple of the sort of openings of the lessons, questions they were looking at. How has the Cathays area changed over the last 100 years? And then this is a picture then of literally down the street of the school, except from this field is no longer there now. That's basically where the school is currently built. And then Cathays High School in photographs, because we're really lucky to have a huge wealth of resources of photos from almost the last 100 years for the pupils to look through and examine. Now, I understand that lots of schools don't necessarily have a bank of resources like this that will help connect to other topics, but there was a couple of takeaways, I guess, that I think could be implemented in any sort of context. So the first one is that the opening lesson for this module, the pupils actually were just examining how the area changed. We wanted the module not to be just tagged on like a kind of random isolated module. So the pupils had just finished learning about the Industrial Revolution, and in their geography lessons, they've just finished learning about population change and urbanisation. So this module connected quite heavily to what the learning that they'd already done. So it's almost like a bigger picture of the Industrial Revolution, and then this was like a smaller lens on the effects that it has had in the area that they are currently in. And the pupils used, first of all, the NLS website to track changes in the local area. The way that we did this lesson is that pupils had quite a lot of freedom to look through the maps and to make any observations that they wanted to. We wanted the pupils to really feel like they had ownership over this and that they could look into different things that they were interested in or different things that caught their eye. And as this lesson went on, we encouraged pupils to make links to the Industrial Revolution and to their geography topic. we are relatively lucky because the positioning of the school has got so many different things that we can draw upon. For example, in the 1886 map, the school is not there. In the 1922 map, the school still is not there, but we can see now houses being built in the area around the school. There's also a brickworks factory that has been built, which obviously links massively to the Industrial Revolution. We've got a train track that they've studied in one of their other lessons to do with Tiger Bay, which my colleague will speak to you about in a moment. So it's quite easy to draw upon things that they can spot literally in the local area that links to topics that they've been doing. If I just show you how these maps work, I think you could use them for any other topic as well, because all you have to do, you can just drag around, double click to get closer, and you can see the maps side by side. So the pupils were able to examine one map, then open the next one, and they can literally see in their own eyes how the city has developed and changed. Yeah, as you can see, this is the earliest map. The school of Cathays High School is not on here at the moment, but they can see it appearing in the later maps, which helps them really understand the difference in urbanisation and how the city grew, which was really, really good. The second sort of takeaway or something that you could implement as well was using the source inquiries. The pupils used sources from the school. Like I said, we're lucky to have a wealth of old photographs, loads of old newspaper entries and newspaper articles that have been stored. We've got diary entries from pupils that attended here in the first year of the school, and we use those for the pupils to make inferences about the past. We incorporated tasks aimed to just develop pupils' historical skills in general, such as considering reliability and usefulness. And we allowed the pupils to dictate what they wanted to discover or find out about the sources. They were encouraged to ask questions for each of the source. And then we'd go back and we'd consider each of the questions. So pupils weren't just looking at something and finding answers that I was dictating them towards. They were really thinking about what they wanted to know. Quite a lot of them commented that the first few pictures from the early years of Cathays High School, there was a huge lack of diversity. So it was the pupils that wanted to understand why diversity has increased massively at Cathays High School, and the positives of that as well. Equally with the sports, rugby is now something that we're really encouraging the pupils to get involved in at the minute. So it was really nice to see a series of photographs of the old rugby team, and quite a lot of the boys were relatively excited that they could take a similar picture and be part of that long heritage of Cathays High School. So we really encourage them to ask questions. We really encourage them to make observations. We encourage them to sort of categorize the different pictures. And when it came to reading some of the larger content, we really focused then what was similar in what the people were saying, and then what was different in what the people were saying. I think although this is obviously quite unique to the context of our school, it would be possible to get newspaper articles and pictures of something local and have pupils just really examine them quite freely for a lesson, which is what prompted loads of really insightful comments and insightful observations from the pupils. But as you can see in their work, we still framed this with some sort of key historical skills such as reliability and inference skills as well, which is something that we're really trying to develop with the Year 8s at the moment in particular. So the impact of this module so far is that the progress in pupils inquiring the source work has really been beneficial. The whole scheme of work was framed with the idea that the pupils were finding out about the topic almost on behalf of the teacher. We sort of told them that we found all these resources, and it was up to them to really look into them and tell us what the school would have been like 100 years ago. We are lucky in that the pupils can wander around the school and they can see where the picture was taken, and outside the gym you can still see where it says girls above one door and boys above the other, because the school was separated. So the pupils were able to wander around the school and actually see their learning sort of right in front of them, which was really, really useful. I feel like that pupils have got a greater understanding of how the different topics fit together. The unit fits together with the Industrial Revolution. It fits together with the Migration Through Time module that we developed. It also fits together with the Empire, because the Maindee Stadium right next to the school was built due to the Empire Games. So we chose to embed the topics within the scheme so it linked to a wider curriculum, rather than having an isolated local history module that didn't have any connection to the other learning that the pupils were doing. You could sense the enjoyment from the pupils. We've attached some videos. You can hear the pupils talking about the scheme of work. And it was great that they could also recognise places and buildings in the photos, and they could find similarities between themselves and the people they were reading about. It was a really great task in mapping change and continuity through time, because it was really easy for them to see what was different, but equally, it was really easy for them to see some of the similarities between their experiences at the school and the people who went to the school in the 1930s, despite being in completely different eras of school life. So going forward, we want to sort of further develop this with the implementation of a learning walk around the local area, potentially into Cathays Cemetery, but also just around Cathays in general, maybe to the stadium or to some of the roads that have been named after the Empire during World War I, so that pupils can see their learning sort of in front of them. We're lucky that in Cathays Cemetery, a lot of the graveyards are linked to people that were involved in various historical events throughout history, for example, the race riots in Cardiff, but also there's obviously war graves as well. So we want to get the pupils out of the classroom and actually experiencing their learning in front of them, a little bit like the boys and the girls outside the gym, because seeing that brought the whole thing alive for them. I also want to add to this concept of teaching a wider topic, for example, the Industrial Revolution, and then linking it to a part of the pupils' local history, this idea of a big picture of the Industrial Revolution and then zooming in to what it was like in Cathays or what it was like in whatever area of Cardiff or Wales you want to focus on. It's sort of the opposite, I guess, of the local, national, global. It's considering the bigger picture and then zooming in. I felt like pupils opened their eyes quite a lot when they understood a topic already. Suddenly the things they were seeing around them made sense a little bit more, which added to their engagement. And there's also scope to link the history of the school during the war years with learning on World War II, as there's quite a lot of resources of people at the school who left to go and fight, teachers who left to go and fight, but also pupils in the school who were killed during the Blitz. So there's quite a lot of scope to broaden this topic and to carry on with other modules that we've developed already. So hopefully this is helpful. We've put some other videos in of the pupils talking about the history of the school and like the impact it had on them and how they felt about it. So hopefully there's a couple of takeaways there for you. Thank you.